Major General Denis Thompson joining me from Montreal, one of our analysts here at CTV when it comes to military matters, a former NATO task force commander. Always good to see you, General Thompson. Your thoughts on this story?
Well, it's a breaking story, so it's very difficult to speculate what this object might be. Certainly, Mr. Kirby was, as you could see in his press conference, a little bit circumspect, doesn't want to be definitive, and I think that's a wise decision. We need to examine the debris field to figure out exactly what it was. That they shot it down is interesting because, of course, at 40,000 feet, it is a risk to commercial airliners, whereas the previous balloon was at some 30 kilometers or 100,000 feet above sea level and therefore not a threat to commercial airliners. I think only time will tell what exactly it was, who owned it, and whether it's of military significance or not. What is good to note is that it would have been picked up by NORAD's North Warning System, and that's what would have triggered this decision-making process that ended up in it being shot down.
It's interesting that this one was picked up quite early. The other one that we talked about, of course, at length, the Chinese spy balloon, that was a different scenario. Any idea what may have led to different results?
Well, it's very difficult at this point in time to determine why the Chinese balloon was allowed to loiter as long as it did, because it clearly entered North American airspace over a part of our country that is essentially without any significant population. Therefore, if it was a military risk or assessed to be one, they could have shot it down long before it started to transit parts of North America that have a higher population. In the end, and I think this is because it was picked up by civilian observers, the U.S. was left with no choice but to shoot down the Chinese balloon, regardless of whether it's a military threat or not, but had to wait until it got out over the Atlantic before they could do so. So two different cases. And again, very early days or very early hours in the second case before we can say definitively what exactly went on here.
We were covering the press conferences from the White House and the Pentagon, General Thompson, last hour. Here's some of the information I was able to glean about the size of a small vehicle, a small car, much smaller than the Chinese spy balloon, 40,000 feet, but not a lot of details over what it was. The Pentagon saying that they don't have any information over what it even looked like. I gather, at that height, would fighter pilots not be able to have some sort of a sense? I understand they may not want to tell us what it was, but again, your thoughts?
No, without question, the fighter pilots could give you an assessment on what it was, but I think they're going to keep their cards close to their chest at this point until they have a little bit more definitive information. Likewise with the Chinese balloon, they would have been able to determine an awful lot just from the signature that it was giving off, et cetera, and then to close with it to within visual range in order to get a better idea. There are very powerful cameras on both surveillance aircraft and fighter jets that would allow them to take high-resolution pictures of any craft, particularly one at only 40,000 feet, because jet fighters can go as high as 55,000 feet. So that would be not an easy day, but it would certainly be well within their capabilities to determine what it was visually. And I don't think they're going to share that with us until they have a better idea where it originated from.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one other thing, I'm going to ask you this, potentially what it might be. Your thoughts?
I have given it some thought, and it's entirely speculative, but wouldn't it be funny, not funny, but wouldn't it be ironic if this was a Russian balloon that they floated our way just to poke a stick in our eye? And that's not unusual. Russia constantly challenges NORAD's airspace with their strategic bombers, and they get turned around both by Canadian and American jets on a routine basis. So perhaps that's all it is. But again, that's entirely speculative on my behalf. I don't think that the Chinese would, at this point, risk further embarrassment by floating another balloon, especially one at such a low altitude over North America at this time.
Hey, one final thing, too, while I've got you. The idea that we went through this with the Chinese spy balloon and obviously led to heightened alert for military forces in North America, would that mean that the reaction time, the urgency placed on this would be heightened as a result, General Thompson?
No, the NORAD has fighters that are on high readiness at all times and can respond within minutes of any incursion to or any even approach to North American airspace. They can respond so that if the aircraft in question, obviously not a commercial aircraft, but a military aircraft in question approaches North American airspace, they can intercept it at the edge of that airspace because they picked it up well out. So, and I don't believe that the balloon, because again, a balloon's not exactly moving at supersonic or even subsonic speeds, would have triggered a change in their posture.
General Thompson, thank you for taking a bit of time today, and I appreciate your caution, as this is a obviously breaking news story and we don't have a lot of details, but it's great to, as always, be able to tap into your expertise.
Okay, take care, Todd.
Denis Thompson joining us from Montreal, former NATO task force commander.